As 2026 gets underway, there are some big legal stories to watch, from high-profile court battles to decisions that could affect everyday Coloradans. 9 News legal expert Whitney Traylor is here to break down 9 cases that could have a major impact this year. Thanks for coming in.
Sure, good to be here.
All right, let's count down backwards.
Okay.
Number 9 is an issue that has received national attention, transgender athletes, and you have a couple cases you're going to discuss.
Yeah, this has been a major issue, is transgender athletes competing, and particularly transgender women competing in women's and girls sports. And so there were 2 cases. One was in Boise State and one was in West Virginia, dealing with a high school student. And really the laws prohibited transgender women and girls from participating in women's sports teams. And the lower courts ruled actually in favor of both women. In the Boise State, they said, hey, these laws violate the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause, and with respect to the high school student, they said this violates Title IX, which Title IX prohibits sex discrimination in education programs. So the Supreme Court has accepted both those cases. We're going to see this year, there's going to be a ruling on that. I suspect it's probably going to be on ideological lines, and the court will probably uphold those bans, but we'll see. The lower courts did not.
Yeah, that is a big one to watch out for. All right, number 8 deals with firearms. What is the Supreme Court deciding in this case?
Yeah, this is really interesting. This is based on a Hawaii law that prohibits firearms, even if you have a concealed carry, from being used on private property unless you have explicit permission from the owner. And so in Hawaii, they have a new law where they have a list of sensitive places where firearms are banned. And it's about 15 different places, like bars and beaches, banks, right, those types of things. And so the question is it a crime to carry a handgun on private property without the property owner's explicit permission? And the plaintiffs are arguing, hey, the Second Amendment doesn't apply to private property. And the Ninth Circuit, the lower court, upheld that law. So we're going to see again if the Supreme Court then expands that law, and they most likely will, based on previous gun cases before the Supreme Court.
All right, coming in at number 7, a series of criminal cases that you're watching out for in 2026.
Right, so there's a number of criminal cases. The first one is the Luigi Mangione case, right? That's expected to go to trial in 2026. We also expect Nick Reiner, who's accused of murdering his parents. That obviously is a high-profile case. Another one related to Colorado was the John Halford. He was right from the Return to Nature funeral home, and they had almost 200 bodies that they were accused of improper disposal of corpses. And so that reason that case was interesting was that the plea deals were rejected by the judge because the families complained and said, look, this isn't enough time. But just a week or 2 ago, the court did accept the most recent plea deals. So John is expected to get 30 to 50 years. He's going to be sentenced in February, and his wife, Carrie, is expected to get 25 to 35 years. She's going to be sentenced in April. And that was the abuse of corpses of nearly 200 bodies. And of course, we saw over the last couple of years, as it relates to these funeral homes, just complete abuse of bodies and mishandling of bodies. And so our state legislature then made a number of new laws that are more regulatory of that industry.
And that's state, because they're also facing federal time as well, right?
Yes, that's correct. And then there'll be civil claims as well, I suspect, but I don't know if they have any money. And then finally, the Alex Murdaugh case, that also he was the lawyer in South Carolina who was convicted of murdering his wife and son.
Right.
Well, he has a pending appeal, and the appeal is based on the court clerk in that case who pled guilty to obstruction of justice, perjury, and other misconduct in connection with his trial. So the question is, will he get a new trial? Now, I watched that case, and there was a plethora of evidence. I would be shocked if he got a not guilty verdict if he got a new trial. But remember, on these trials, it has to be unanimous. So you get one person holding out, you could have a hung jury. So he's still kicking and fighting, even though he got those multiple life sentences.
Was that number 6?
That was number 7.
Okay, and number 6, you also have a Colorado case that's being heard in the Supreme Court, right?
Right, and this is the one, the Childs versus Salazar case, which is a challenge on Colorado's ban on conversion therapy. So conversion therapy is therapy to convert someone's sexual orientation or their gender identity. And the plaintiff in that case is a Christian, and she's saying that, and this is a quote from the case, clients can accept the bodies that God has given them and find peace. And she's saying that this law violates her free speech and her right to practice religion, because she's saying, hey, I'm using God to help these people to get back to their original whatever sexual orientation, that heterosexual, and the gender identity that they were born with. Now, the federal appeals court upheld this law, this ban on conversion therapy, and they said because it's not a restriction on free speech, but that they're regulating the healthcare profession. So it's really, it's an interesting issue, because the question is, well, is this related to the healthcare industry and their norms, or is this actually speech when you're acting as a therapist for these folks?
A lot of big cases to watch out for.
Yes,
and you just went through 9 through 6. We've got a few more to go through coming up in the next hour, going down all the way to number 1. Yesterday, you tricked us. We could not guess what it is. I'm not even going to try today.
Oh,
so
okay.
Looking forward to it. And in 1 hour, we're going to have the rest of those cases. Katie?